Happy Saturday. Welcome back to the Saturday Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, joined by Alex Napoles. As always, we've got Sean behind the glass. I hope you guys all had a tremendous 4th of July.
Is it Saturday?
Today's Saturday.
Oh, man. I lost track of the day of the week.
Feels a little weird, doesn't it?
It does. Obviously, the station was off yesterday, and so this entire week I went through thinking and trying to figure out what day of the week it was. I came in on Thursday, and I genuinely thought it was Friday.
It basically was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking, and you've still got all 10 fingers.
Yeah.
Sean, you as well? Yep. Okay. Way to go, guys.
None of us burned our fingers off.
Yeah.
That's a successful 4th of July in my book.
Yes. As well as pounding all the burgers and the hot dogs.
Yes, sir.
As possible. You know what? I'll start off the day with an old man sort of opinion. I think there's got to be like a time cutoff for lighting up fireworks.
I 100% agree with you.
It has never bugged me.
Yeah.
I don't think ever until last night for some reason. I was trying to sleep, and it was definitely past midnight. It was probably, I'm talking like 12:30-ish, and neighbors are lighting off fireworks. And it's like, dude, my dog is freaking out, like couldn't sleep, and I couldn't sleep. My wife had to work this morning. She had to be up super early. She couldn't sleep. So yeah, we've got to do something about. I think it's great that people can buy fireworks, and obviously if they're being safe, don't want to cause a fire or anything. I think that is fun, and especially for kids and stuff. But there's just got to be a time cutoff. Be respectful to the people in your neighborhood. But I just had to get that off my chest.
I think in my neighborhood, I think it was probably like 1 o'clock, and you still heard some bangs and some shabooms.
Yeah.
You know? How's your 4th of July, though, man?
My 4th was great. I was out all week, actually. I went up to Minnesota. That's where my mom is from. Got to see my grandpa. Got to see my aunt and uncle. Saw some family. I haven't been up there in a few years, so I wanted to get up there. It's always a great time. It's beautiful up there this time of year. It's a very, very beautiful state. They call it the land of 10,000 lakes. That holds true. I mean, you can't even drive 5 miles without passing like 2 lakes. Like it is crazy. So we go up there, do a lot of fishing, visit with family, and that's always fun. And then I got home in time to enjoy the holiday. So there you go.
Awesome, man. We didn't do fireworks. My parents are out of town. They and their friends went on a quick trip down to Mesquite.
Oh, Mesquite's fun.
So me and my siblings ended up just doing 30 rounds of Mario Party last night. And so we
30?
30 rounds of Mario Party. And so
that's a lot.
30 turns, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like 30 separate games. I was like, I don't know how that's possible.
No. 30 turns Mario Party, which I think that game lasted almost 3 hours.
That's fun.
We started at 10 and then we didn't finish till it had to been 1:30 in the morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds fun. Did you go out and watch like city fireworks or?
We watched what we could from our rooftop in our window.
Nice.
Yeah, just all the neighbors, just mooching off the neighbors this year. We didn't buy fireworks. We didn't partake in the fireworks. We just watched everybody else's fireworks.
Oh, great.
Yeah, man.
Sean, you get out, watch fireworks?
No, I did the same thing as Alex.
Yeah.
Okay. West Valley, it pops off, so you just go out in the front yard and
quite
look
literally
in any direction, and it's just going.
There you go. Well, I hope everybody out there listening had a great holiday, and that's what's nice about it falling on a Friday. You still get the whole weekend to just chill and relax. So thanks for making us a part of your morning. Let's jump right in. It was a busy week, obviously. NBA free agency, NHL free agency, both opened on Monday. Saw a lot of movement for the Jazz, especially saying goodbye to two guys that really gave a lot to the team. Number one, in Jordan Clarkson, who was the longest tenured player at the moment. They buy out his contract after, presumably, I would guess that they have tried to trade him the last couple of years and nobody really wanted his contract. So it just got to a point where they had to buy him out. And then with Colin Sexton, they trade him to Charlotte. And both of these moves, essentially, I mean, you've got Walter Clayton Jr., you've got Keontae George, you've got Isaiah Collier. The reason the Jazz move off of those veterans is to clear playing time for this young group because Keontae George is extension eligible next summer.
Yeah.
So you need to know what your decision is. You need him to see the floor as much as possible. And then Isaiah Collier had a pretty good rookie year. He had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. You got to see how much he can improve and really decide if he can be a quality rotation player at the very least. And then, of course, you draft Walter Clayton Jr. in the first round this year. You want him to see the floor as much as possible. So ideally for the Jazz, I mean, obviously, best case scenario would be all three of those guys work out. But if you're the Jazz, you're hoping at least two of those guys are long-term assets for this team.
100%. And I think the moving on from Jordan Clarkson may be a little bit overdue. I think that there was probably a market for him 3 years ago, maybe. Like once the whole rebuild
before they signed
started.
him to that deal.
Yeah. And I think it was just time to. I know he's a fan favorite. I know everybody loves Jordan Clarkson, but I think it was time to move on and to allow the younger guys to step up and allow them to take those minutes. For Colin Sexton, that one, I thought Colin Sexton brought a lot.
Yeah.
I loved the energy that he brought to the team. I loved the grit and the determination he brought on the court every time he was on the court and played. But again, that opens up minutes for Keontae George, for a Walt Clayton Jr., and for Isaiah Collier. And so that one, I while I'm maybe not a fan at the beginning of it, I think I will ultimately be okay with it once we give ourselves the opportunity to see the younger guys get more playing time.
Well, and that's the hard part, kind of looking at these moves, right? Because you use the term fan favorites, and that is so true.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson.
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson had so many memorable moments here in Salt Lake City. And again, he was the last holdover from the previous iteration of Jazz teams. And, I was explaining to my wife, like the whole, how many Jazz games have you been to this year? Oh, a lot. Like that whole situation is just funny. And he's a great guy by all accounts. Great locker room personality. He's been around the league. He's played for several teams, and he knows what it takes to stick around. And not only that, but he's a true testament of coaching and how much being coachable as a player can benefit you, because the Jordan Clarkson that left Salt Lake City is not the same Jordan Clarkson that came in when they acquired him. He changed so much as a player during his time here for the better, and we saw that, including winning the Sixth Man of the Year award, and then even under Will Hardy, just becoming a really dependable veteran. And I think that's what the Knicks are acquiring. Obviously, they are signing him after the contract buyout with the Jazz. And then to Colin Sexton, that was a tough one because he was, Clarkson's older. Sexton is right on the borderline of, you talk about timelines with this team. He's 25 or 26. And it's like, theoretically, he could possibly be a part of the future for this team. But with there being so many young guards in the rotation, you need to clear space. You need to see what you have. So, yeah, that's tough. You talk about his kind of tenacious work ethic, and that kind of bled into every aspect of his game. And you could see it even, he's not the biggest guy, but you could see the work that he puts in offensively and defensively. I mean, he plays to the whistle every single possession, and it's, you would hope that was contagious, and that's why you wanted Colin Sexton around, because he's a really high energy guy. And that's the part that kind of sucks about losing him, is you've got these young guys coming in and you want them to know that hard work is going to get you where you want to go in the NBA. And that's what Colin Sexton is. So losing that, you're losing a valuable locker room asset there.
They called him Young Bull for a reason, man.
Exactly.
Called him Young Bull for a reason, and
he's just Bull.
Now he's just Bull.
Not quite young.
Anytime, like I said, anytime he was on the court, he would bring a different vibe and a different energy, because he was always the type to just put his head down and kind of use his physicality and his energy to make up for where he lacked, maybe in shooting, maybe in his skills, but he always gave it 100%, and you can see that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of fans appreciate when you can see a guy going in and giving it 110%. And Colin Sexton is 100% one of those guys.
Always. Yeah, and you get into like how do I word this? Last year they got fined for essentially tanking, for holding out players because of exaggerated injury reports. And that had to hurt Colin Sexton because he's one of those guys that he thirsts to be out on the court, right? He wants to be out there because he's a competitor. And so I know that if he was going to stick around on this team, he wasn't looking forward to that for next year. I know they say they're not going to do that, and this is kind of evidence to that. They are moving off of veterans so they don't have to find reasons to hold them out of games. Let's talk about the return a little bit, though, because that's where this Colin Sexton trade gets a little weird, right?
Yes.
Not only do they trade Colin Sexton to the Charlotte Hornets to get Yusuf Nurkic, a veteran, they also had to add a second-round pick to the trade to make it work. And I have a really hard time believing that there's essentially no trade market for Colin Sexton. And I know that being on a team with a losing record, the worst record in the NBA, that's going to hurt anybody's trade value, no matter how good they are. But I think that was the most shocking part to me was that's all that they could get. They didn't get any picks in return. And
in fact, they lost a pick.
And again, I know the reason you make this trade isn't to accumulate assets. The reason is to clear playing time for the young guys. But it would be nice to accumulate more assets. But no, they have to lose a pick in the process. And I know it's a 20-30 second-round pick, so how much does that matter? Ideally, they'll be good by then. But that was a little weird to me. And now they bring in Nurkic, who is just a body on the bench. And I know he's front court depth behind Walker Kessler and Kyle Filipowski and Taylor Hendricks. But that was a little weird to me.
Nurkic, an 11-year veteran with about a career average of about 11 points and 8 rebounds. Even then, you look at Nurkic and I mean, I guess that you want to bring in some center depth, and that's fine, but I don't know if Nurkic is the guy that's really going to come in and try to make this team better, right? This kind of screams to me as this is kind of a bridge player until we can figure out what we want to do at that position, for sure. Until either, one, Kyle Filipowski kind of rises up to the occasion and continues his development and ends up being better, right, as he develops. But to me, this is just this guy's going to come in and he's going to be a veteran in the locker room.
Yeah, you look at, the reason this trade was made, again, to clear playing time for the young guards. But now you add a veteran that, is he going to take minutes away from the older big men or from the younger big men in this group? I don't think so, because obviously, especially big men, right, they're not going to play a lot every night. This guy, Nurkic, is not going to, I don't know how many minutes he played a game last year. I doubt he's going to be averaging more than 20 minutes a game with the Jazz. Of course, you need depth with those guys, especially with, I don't know what the deal is with Micah Potter and Oscar Tshiebwe. I know that they've extended an offer to Tshiebwe. But yeah, you need depth, and I get that. Part of me is like, okay, why wouldn't they take a swing on maybe a project rotational man and see if they can get another kind of hybrid guy like Filipowski, and so just to add more versatility. But then the other part of me is like, well, it's nice to have the veteran that you don't have to worry about developing and spend less time, I guess, hounding him. You don't, again, pups don't raise pups. So you need some sort of veteran presence in the locker room, I guess, because now Walker Kessler is your longest tenured Jazz player.
Yes.
So yeah, you need some sort of veteran man in the group to kind of help these guys out. But I don't know. I haven't heard much about Nurkic and his leadership style and all that. But again, similar to Jordan Clarkson, like, he's been around the league, and at the very minimum, he knows what it takes to stick around, and that alone is something. So I am curious to see what sort of impact he has on guys like, again, Walker Kessler and Kyle Filipowski and Taylor Hendricks and some of those other guys.
I think Nurkic can come in, and I think the hope is that he will end up being being some sort of a veteran presence, especially for a guy like Kyle Filipowski, who I think we saw a lot of potential out of him last season. And so again, I think Nurkic is brought in to kind of help bridge the gap between when Kyle Filipowski right now is in that development stage, and to kind of bridge and have a little bit more extra depth there while Filipowski continues to grow as a player. That's purely what I see Nurkic coming over to the Jazz as. Yeah,
and then you throw in the fact, I mean, I know Lauri Markkanen doesn't play the 5 much, but he is, probably a 4-ish. So, you throw in Lauri Markkanen and Taylor Hendricks, Kyle Filipowski, Walker Kessler. That's a 4-man rotation already. So where does Nurkic fit in there? And essentially, I guess that brings some pressure off of maybe Taylor Hendricks coming off the injury, not rushing him back and whatever. And then who knows, maybe this is kind of insurance in case Lauri Markkanen or Walker Kessler move does come down the road, because the summer just got started. And there's still a long time before the NBA season tips off. So who's to say what else is going to happen with this Jazz roster? But Nurkic pulling up his stats. I mean, 9 points a game last year, 7.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists on 20.8 minutes per game. So
right. And I thought his time in Portland, he was pretty decent. And then he went over to the Phoenix Suns to try to help them get over the hump and help them try to win a championship, but it didn't really work out in Phoenix. Ends up getting traded and moved to Charlotte halfway through the season, and then now you have him here in Utah. So we'll see again what he's able to bring. The interesting thing to me now is you lose Colin Sexton, you lose Jordan Clarkson. Obviously, that's time to. It gives you that opportunity to open up minutes for the younger guys, but now I'm looking at what's next, and to me it seems as. To me, the question is what's going to happen with John Collins at this point.
I totally forgot about John Collins. Exactly.
I
was talking about a 4-man rotation.
That's why I bring him up, because I'm trying to think of like the projected starting 5 for the Utah Jazz next season. I'm trying to think of who's going to be there, and every time I try to like put it together and build it, John Collins is the odd man out.
Right.
I can't find a place for him because you want to give time to Ace Bailey, you want to give time to Taylor Hendricks, who's going to be coming back.
Yeah.
And then obviously Lauri's in that conversation, and so it seems like John Collins is kind of the odd man out right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if John Collins has moved. I do want to, going back to Nurkic real quick, one last note. Who's to say the Jazz don't reroute him here this summer or at the trade deadline? Again, that's always possible. So
100%.
Just want to throw that in there. But again, going back to John Collins, he was sort of. People talked about Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, and John Collins as the vets that were very likely to get moved. And then you throw in the possibility of, Lowry could get moved, and then Walker Kessler is like, there are always going to be trade rumors surrounding Walker Kessler. So, John Collins still very much on the trading block, I would presume, especially, again, as you bring up, you need time for Taylor Hendricks. You need time for Ace Bailey. You need time for Flip. And if you still have Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen in that group, like that really limits how much John Collins will play a role with this team. And I know he was great last year with the Jazz. He was probably their best player. And for the Jazz where they're at right now, I don't know if they want a best player. But we'll see. I mean, I think John Collins could add a lot of value to a lot of teams. I think anybody would be really interested in essentially a stretch 5 that can come in and really spread the floor, incredibly athletic, and he's solid on defense. He's nothing spectacular, but he's just kind of a really do-it-all guy.
Right.
And I think anybody would be interested in that. So
I think statistically speaking, John Collins last year had a really good season, man.
Probably the best year of his career.
Especially with the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Especially with the Utah Jazz. And he's on that expiring contract. He opted into the player options.
He picked up his option,
so he's on the expiring contract. And so, I mean, he's a really valuable asset for the Utah Jazz to try to move off of and see what they can get in return for him. And I think the next domino to fall in this Utah Jazz rebuild is going to be John Collins.
Yeah, well, we thought that Colin Sexton was a really valuable asset, and it turns out, I guess, he wasn't.
Yeah.
So maybe this kind of is
tough
market.
Like,
okay, tough market. Prepare for an underwhelming return if and when they do trade John Collins. I don't know. Who knows? Real quickly, I do want to move on Salt Lake Summer League begins tonight, and I am very, very excited for that, especially for tonight's matchup. The Jazz are taking on the 76ers. Obviously, that means you're going to see Ace Bailey, pick number 5, versus VJ Edgecombe, pick number 3. I think that I was looking at the rosters for the Salt Lake Summer League this year, and they're pretty stacked. I think it's going to be a very entertaining year. I was trying to find the 76ers roster, but the website I'm looking at posted the Jazz roster under the 76ers roster.
Oh.
I'm interested to see if Jared McCain is playing for Philly. I haven't seen that yet, but I like McCain going into his second year, coming off a meniscus tear that shortened what was a really exciting rookie season. So Philly has a lot of exciting young talent, as well as the Utah Jazz, obviously, with not only Ace Bailey, but pick number 18, Walt Clayton Jr. Doesn't look like Keontae George is going to be playing. The only guy from that draft year on the Salt Lake Summer League roster for the Jazz is Bryce Sensabaugh, with Taylor Hendricks still recovering. But then Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, all on the roster. John Tonji, second-round pick, and R.J. Lewis Jr., free agent pickup this year. So a lot of exciting names to watch tonight for the Jazz, not just tonight, but this weekend. Again, Jazz getting going tonight. That game tips off at 7. And reminder, it's at the Huntsman Center this year, not the Delta Center.
I think it'll be awesome to see VJ Edgecombe, man, get his NBA start too in Salt Lake, along with Ace Bailey.
Oh, I'm so excited to watch Ace.
I think the VJ Edgecombe Ace Bailey matchup tonight should be extremely exciting. Not only for Jazz fans, obviously, because I think most and every single Jazz fan is excited to see Ace Bailey, but I mean, at the same time, you get to see VJ Edgecombe, and a lot of people argued that was your number 3 and your number 4 in the draft.
Oh, 100%.
As far as talent and ceilings go.
Yeah.
It was Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe. So you're seeing 2 incredibly talented ball players getting to play and going head-to-head tonight at the Huntsman Center, man. It's awesome.
There are a lot of fun storylines, especially because VJ Edgecombe went to Baylor, right? And with Utah and BYU both being in the Big 12, we saw a lot of Baylor basketball last year. So it seems like out of all of the top 5 prospects, aside from Cooper Flagg, because everybody was watching Cooper Flagg, hoping he was coming to Salt Lake, it seems like VJ Edgecombe was the guy that local fans watched the most. But then, yeah, you throw in the fact that Ace Bailey was widely seen as the second or third best prospect in this draft, yet he didn't end up going to Philly at number 3.
Yes.
So, yeah, a lot of underlying storylines. I know that Ace Bailey obviously has been practicing with the Jazz the last week or so, and by all accounts, it sounds like it's going great. Sounds like his shot is real, real smooth, real fluid. He can get it up whenever he wants. And then not to forget about Walt Clayton Jr., I'm excited to see what sort of playing style kind of translates to the NBA, because he was a guy, we talked about it last week with Chandler Holt, like, you need a big shot, Walt Clayton Jr. is taking it and it's going in. And as far as now he's coming to the Jazz and he's not the guy, he's a guy, I am curious to see what sort of change comes there as far as being more of a facilitator as a point guard. But we know he has the ability to chuck it up and score, because his shooting percentages were legit.
I think it's an opportunity for a guy like Clayton Jr. and a guy like Tonji and even RJ Lewis to come in and kind of make a name for yourselves, because right now those are guys that are fighting for roster spots. Those are guys that are fighting to impress the coaching staff, to impress people, who probably didn't necessarily expect these guys to come in and really be impact or make a difference, right? But they have that opportunity. They have that stage here in the Summer League, and that's one of the things I really like about Summer League, right? You give these players an opportunity to showcase their skills, to showcase their potential, to eventually and hopefully make it onto an NBA roster. And so I'm excited to see all these new guys come in and try to make a difference.
Again, that game tips off at 7 tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, you can go up and watch it at the Huntsman Center if you can't make it. Tune in to the KSL Sports Zone. We'll be broadcasting that, as always, with David Locke and Ron Boone. And, if neither of those options work, got a lot of options to watch it on TV. It's going to be on ESPN, KJazz, NBA TV, YouTube TV, all that fun stuff. So that's tonight's game. As far as the rest of the Summer League schedule, We've also got the Grizzlies taking on the Thunder. That's tonight at 5. And then day 2 will be Monday, so they get the day off tomorrow. Monday, you've got the Thunder taking on Philadelphia at 5. And then you've got the Grizzlies taking on the Jazz at 7. And then day 3 on Tuesday, the Grizzlies will play the 76ers, and the Jazz will wrap it up against the Thunder. So all of these teams have lottery talent this year. A lot of exciting names to come in and watch. So especially, I mean, man, you look at the Thunder and all of the young players that they've drafted over the last couple of years that didn't even get kind of the chance to make their mark on that championship team. Like, I'm excited to see. I think this is a great group of Salt Lake Summer League teams. I think they all bring something very interesting, and you're going to want to tune into these games.
I 100% agree. And then you look at the Grizzlies, and they've Cedric Howard, their first-round draft pick, will, of course, be here playing. And so I think he's going to be someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on to see how he performs. And then, obviously, you have Oklahoma City, who is able to finally debut their rookie, Nikola Topic, who suffered an ACL and didn't play last year and didn't play a single game, unfortunately, in his rookie year. So those are other two fun storylines to keep an eye on, especially that since it's happening here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, and then, of course, they'll move on to Vegas soon after that. So, all right, we got to take a break. Coming up next, we will get into more into NBA free agency. I want to kind of do some winners and losers. There are some teams that I think made some great acquisitions, and I want to talk about that next. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is summertime. It was hot yesterday. I don't know if that's just me.
It was like humid hot because we had like the thunderstorms roll in and the monsoon roll in, and it kind of made things a little gross and humid.
Yeah, I came in again. I was in Minnesota all week, so up there it's very humid.
Yeah.
But the temperature isn't as hot. It actually felt really nice up there, and then I come back to Utah, and the dry heat just like it was hot. I was struggling.
No, it was. That's Utah for you, man. You can feel it the second you walk off the plane, man. It's weird.
Yeah, literally like on the bridge coming into the airport, it's like, ugh. Anyway, okay, let's get into NBA free agency because that was kind of the big story of the week. It opened on Monday. Saw a lot of movement, which is always fun, especially given the fact that they're, big names don't hit free agency anymore. But we still saw a lot of trades. There were a few teams that I thought made some very good moves. There are a few teams that I think made questionable moves. What do you want to start with? You want to start with a winner or a loser?
Start with some winners, man.
Winners?
Start with some positive vibes.
All right. I'll save my big winner for later. I want to start off with the Rockets.
Yes.
Not even counting their Kevin Durant trade, which obviously that was huge. That happened a little bit before free agency officially started. But then they bring in Clint Capella to add alongside Şengün and Steven Adams. And that gives them 3 very rotational big men. A lot of versatility there, especially with Clint Capella kind of being a really athletic guy. And I know that he's past his prime. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act that this is the Clint Capella that we saw 5-6 years ago, right? But he's still a very serviceable body. And the reason that I like this move is because it shows that the Rockets were not just content with trading for Kevin Durant. They didn't make the big move and then say, okay, we're done. We're going to win the championship now.
We're contenders.
Yeah, they're saying, no, we make the big move.
Yeah.
What other moves around it can we make to increase our chances of winning? And I like that from a front office. They also bring in Dorian Finney-Smith, a shooter, and then they keep Fred VanVleet. And it really shows. I think this is just smart front office decisions.
Right. You re-sign. I think the biggest thing is re-signing Jabari Smith and Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet, is now taking less of a hit on the salary cap thanks to his extension, the way it was structured. And so you're able to bring in Dorian Finney-Smith, Clint Capella, and Kevin Durant's contract and avoid the second apron.
Yeah.
Right. You're all within. You're in a pretty good spot if you're the Rockets. You restructure some salaries, and then You bring in some guys who I think can really put you over the top. To me, the biggest winner is the Houston Rockets, especially in the Western Conference.
They're your biggest winner.
They're in the Western Conference, yes.
Okay.
And I know you're going to disagree.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I still think, I mean, you can both be winners.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. And I'm curious to see how this ends up working out for the Rockets, because when they first made the Kevin Durant trade, and I was the same way with the Thunder, I'm not ready to crown somebody like as the champs.
No,
right?
I'm not saying they're going to win it all.
No. And I'm not taking it like that. I'm just saying that, again, like I said, they made additional moves on top of that, and I really, really like that.
Right.
And I am curious to see how it works out, because Kevin Durant hasn't won anything in a while, and when he did, obviously he did great things in Golden State, but also he was playing next to one of the greatest players of all time. So how much can he lead a young team? His leadership is going to be very important for the Rockets. But again, the auxiliary moves around it, I do really, really like. So
on paper, it looks like a really.
On paper, they're contenders.
On paper, yes. On paper, they're contenders. It looks really good. But the biggest question now is going to be, can KD stay healthy?
Can he lead? Can he stay healthy?
Can he lead?
We know he can score when he's on the court.
Right.
But as we've seen, it's not just all about scoring. So I want to talk about the Denver Nuggets. I really, really liked the moves that they made. They started things off by getting rid of Michael Porter Jr. and his atrocious contract. They traded Michael Porter Jr. and a future unprotected 2032 first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. Number one, quick aside on the Nets, I like that they are in the business of acquiring assets and taking on bad contracts to accumulate picks. I think that is a great move. That's what got the Thunder to where they are now. Although you look at their 5 first-round picks and I didn't like the selections that they made, but I like the process. So anyway, I like Brooklyn taking on Porter Jr. to get this first-round pick. But going back to the Nuggets, bringing in Cam Johnson, who essentially, I know they're different players, but Johnson is one of the best spot-up shooters in the NBA, and that's exactly what you're going to get playing in Denver. And we saw Aaron Gordon kind of pick up that role a little bit, especially during the playoffs, and he actually did really good at it. But again, you need shooters. When you have one of the best passers in the league in Nikola Jokic, a guy who's going to get it in the paint and then kick it out at the last second. Michael Porter Jr. kind of fell apart in the playoffs last year. So essentially, the one-on-one replacement, but you're also saving like $17 million a year. I love that. But then they weren't done there. They also added Tim Hardaway Jr., another shooter. So I really like that move. And some other depth moves, I don't know. I think the Nuggets were kind of facing like a split path, right? It's like, do you continue to try and build around this core or around Jokic and try to keep your chips in the contending basket? Or do you think about tearing it down because you have all these bad contracts? And I know it's hard moving off a 2032 first-round pick, because that's going to come around when Nikola Jokic is probably on his decline or on his way out of the league, right? So that's always a risky move. But, if you are in your contending window right now, you kind of got to go all in. And I like that.
100% agree. Cam Johnson, I think, is definitely a massive step up from Porter Jr., especially after the way the season ended for Michael Porter Jr., and you're also now kind of fixing your bench depth, which I think the bench depth that the Nuggets had in 2023 when they won that championship, I think was a big reason why they won that championship.
Yeah.
We talked about it a lot during the playoff run, is how important it was to have a deep bench, guys who can come in and contribute and step up in big ways in the playoffs for you. And I think they're finally trying to get back to that. And they're finally making moves that allow you to do that. Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway, I think are going to be good depth additions for the Nuggets. And you're helping bring back a good supporting cast around Jokic, which I think is the most important thing for the Nuggets.
Well, yeah, you still retain Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, right? Christian Brown. They had one of the best starting lineups in the NBA playoffs last year. It's just, as you mentioned, their depth was really, really bad. Bruce Brown, totally forgot to mention him, like you bring up. He already spent some time with Denver. He won the championship there.
Won the ship, yep.
So he kind of knows the roster. He knows the system a little bit. And I thought that this was a really good first offseason for the new front office after they got rid of Calvin Booth. And now you're looking at the top of the West, and it's like, okay, the Thunder just won the title, and their roster's not changing over the next year. The second apron's not going to hit them until the year after. So they are still very much contenders. We just talked about the Rockets, and I think the Nuggets made basically every move they needed to make to keep themselves in that conversation. I think you're looking at a 3-team race in the West as far as waking up today, July 5th, what's going to happen. So I personally like the Nuggets moves a little more than the Rockets moves. Again, going back to number one, the Nuggets have done it before. Number two, I think they just have. I think the Rockets are too young still a little bit outside of Durant, but we'll see. I think the playoffs are going to be fun as always next year.
I think another big winner for me, and probably the biggest winner in the Eastern Conference, has got to be the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, they're interesting.
You move on from Karis LeVert, Clint Capella, Larry Nance Jr., George Niang, and Terrence Mann. Do any of those names move the needle for you?
Not really, not anymore, no.
You move on from all those guys. You bring in Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Luke Kennard.
Yeah. Well, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was because, people don't hit free agency anymore. He was like one of the most coveted free agents, which is interesting just because, he had a cup of coffee here in Salt Lake or a cup of soda. And then obviously, Quinn Snyder's coaching over there. Yeah. And similar to Denver, they were kind of facing the path of like, what do we do as far as trying to go all in an East that is wide open or trying to tear it down. And it's like, yeah, why would you tear it down after, the Pacers suffering the Tyrese Halliburton injury and then the Celtics obviously losing Jason Tatum. So, yeah, that East is wide open. And the Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago. Trae Young is the only player I think that is still on that roster. I don't know for sure. I don't know their roster very well. But, yeah, I think it gives them a chance. And bringing in Kristaps Porzingis is interesting. He's definitely a lot better player than Clint Capella right now. You're not asking Clint Capella to come in and be your starter. And I think that's what matters. So we'll see if Porzingis can stay healthy. He had that mystery illness that kept him out a little bit in the playoffs. So.
That's right.
But, yeah, getting rid of a lot of these contracts and, bringing in some guys that bring interest to the Hawks, which, again,
right.
As far as the East, yeah, I could see that.
I like the moves that the Hawks have made, and I think on paper right now, they as far as winners and losers go for free agency, to me the Hawks are the biggest winners right now in the Eastern Conference. For sure.
Yeah, I can see that. Real quick, just got a bag on the Lakers.
Oh man,
biggest losers.
What are you guys doing?
Not only does LeBron pick up his player option, which limits how much money that they have. Everybody was kind of hoping that he would take a pay cut to try and build the roster, but then you've got all these trade rumors surrounding him, and that's why he picked up the option so he could get traded. And I've always held the belief that I think he's going to want to finish his career in Cleveland, and I would not be shocked by that. And again, I'm not reporting anything, especially with the Lakers. Like, I don't have any sources, but it would not surprise me at all if he wants to go back to Cleveland at some point and
retire.
Picking up the option. I think that's, that signals that he could get traded. It also signals that maybe he just wants as much money as he can make with the Lakers. But again, that limits to what they can do money-wise. And they pick up, everybody knows they need a big man. They really want Walker Kessler. They always have. They probably always will. But instead, they bring in DeAndre Ayton, a very underwhelming player, former number 1 overall pick, same draft class as Luka Doncic. Big whiff there by the Suns. But I don't know. He made it to the finals with the Suns, and I think that's his only redeeming quality. Outside of that, I was listening to some stories on the way in, and it really sounded like his time in Portland did not go well as far as being a leader.
Sounds
or
like he,
lack of leadership and
sounds
whatever.
Like he caused a lot of issues.
So, yeah, that's tough. And now you're joining, not only are you going to L.A., but you're also joining a locker room that already has big egos with LeBron James and Luka Doncic.
Right.
So we'll see. I think ultimately I would not be shocked if LeBron's going to request a trade. I'm not going to say that I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but it definitely would not surprise me in the least.
Well, what was the comments that his agency made after he went in?
Yeah.
He went in back. I remember, of all people, Adam Schefter tweeting it and talking about it, and a lot of people kind of took it as a dig to the Los Angeles
It said
Lakers.
something about he wants to go to a contender, right? And
Right.
he realizes what the Lakers roster is doing, and it was kind of hinting that he didn't feel like the Lakers were building up a contending roster or something like that.
Yes.
And, it is interesting when you've got Rich Paul, who's got his hands behind every move in the league, at least it seems like. And I know it seems like he's losing a little bit of power, but still he controls a lot of the big contracts in the NBA. And then especially when you have LeBron James, the big fish. For as old as he is, he's still LeBron James. And you've got all the star power there in Los Angeles. So I don't know. As far as teams that would want to trade for LeBron, I honestly don't know if Cleveland would. But again, LeBron has never been told no in the NBA. He kind of always gets what he wants. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I found the quote from Rich Paul. He says, LeBron knows the Lakers are building for the future. LeBron understands that he values a realistic chance of winning it all. We are very appreciative of the partnership that we've had for 8 years with Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, and consider the Lakers as a critical part of his career. And somehow, some way, people took that as a dig at LA.
He's already been there for 8 years.
Right, man.
That's crazy.
We're old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I could see how that's interpreted that way. Fully understands that the Lakers are building for the future.
Right.
LeBron is 40. What is he? 43.
Yes.
It seems like that's not a guy that he doesn't care what they're doing for the future.
Yeah.
And I could understand how that would feel kind of a slap to the face to him. Like, hey, I've still got good basketball left, right? I want you to build around me now because I'm here now. I'm not going to be here for the future. And again, with the new ownership group with the Lakers, it's probably smart for them to build for the future because, again, LeBron is not told no very often. And eventually he does get his way. So if he feels like the Lakers are kind of phasing him out, he's going to request a trade and go somewhere that he feels like can have a title, and it's probably going to be somewhere in the East because the West is wide open. The West is so top-heavy, and the East is wide open. He's probably going to go somewhere over East. I'm just curious to whether or not Cleveland would risk trading for him. I don't think they would, but desperation is a stinky cologne, my friend.
Right. Right. And we talked about how the Cleveland Cavaliers haven't been able to get over the hump.
No.
So maybe they see LeBron as their ticket to push for a championship one more time before he retires. I don't know, man. I don't know. But we'll see.
We will see. All right, we got to take a break. Coming up next on the other side, we'll get into technical fouls, some of the funnier things that happened in the world of sports this week. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. It's time for technical fouls. We're going to talk about some of the sports franchises that kind of, well, not sports franchises, sports stories that kind of make us laugh, make us wonder, make us say, you shouldn't have done that. So, Alex, why don't you start us off? We've got one technical foul today, but it's relevant.
There's a pretty big one happening right now, and it's still, it's still in the world of the NBA, and it has to be, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they absolutely backstabbed Damian Lillard this week in waiving him. I know, obviously, and buying out his contract, and I know, obviously, for the next couple years or so, he's still going to be making money off this contract or whatever, but you kind of call it quits on Damian Lillard to bring in Miles Turner, and the Bucks seem like it's a really desperate move for them to just move on from Lillard.
So that's the angle that I've seen a lot of people taking it, right? Like they did Dame dirty.
I think they did.
I'm kind of questionable on that. I don't know. I get it, but it's not their fault that he got hurt.
No.
I think it was a bad contract to begin with because he was already old and they gave him a very long-term deal for somebody of that age. And you're basically hoping that it pans out, right? When you make that move and commit that much money, then in his first year with the team, he suffers an Achilles tear, which is going to be very hard to come back from. And the Bucks were up against the corner and they're facing the possibility of Giannis Antetokounmpo wanting out. and you're basically trying to salvage the relationship with probably the best player to ever play for your franchise, and wanting to retain him. And I know that there was some speculation because Giannis put a tweet out like after Dame was bought out, and I don't know how to read that, whether it was he was upset. I know Chris Haynes, an NBA insider who has actually connections to Giannis, he reported that Giannis was upset that they bought Dame out, but it's like, why would he be upset at that? Because he's not going to play it all next year anyways.
Right.
And you have to understand from a team building standpoint, if you have $50 million a year tied up to Damian Lillard, you need to do something because he's 37. He's not going to play next year, and you're up against the corner. So I thought it was a smart move from Milwaukee, honestly. Spreading out his cap hit over, over 5 years,
Yes,
right?
over 5 years.
That's all they could do. I know it's not smart technically because they're going to owe $22.5 million to him every year for the next 5 years, but it's like they had to do something.
Right.
And I don't know if Miles Turner was the right move, but they had to do something.
I like Miles Turner, and I thought he played a huge piece of helping Indiana get to that NBA Finals.
Yeah.
But I don't know if and obviously time will tell, but I don't know if his fit in Milwaukee is the best.
No, it's kind of weird. Well, I don't know, because Giannis is your traditional rim protector big, and then he scores in the paint. And he doesn't do anything outside of the paint. And then whereas Miles Turner is your stretch big, and he doesn't like to be in the paint. And so I guess they complement each other in that way, but then they don't have any guards really. But I don't know. As far as the doing Damian Lillard dirty, like it's what they had to do. And he's rehabbing all of next year anyways. On top of that, it gives him the opportunity to sign with a contender when he's ready to come back, or sign with whoever he wants, whether it is a contender or whether he wants to play a year in Utah just because he loves the state so much. I don't know. We'll see what happens a year from now, but it's what they had to do. But I think it's a very interesting move because you don't see moves like this very often in the NBA. It's very rare to see buyouts anyways, but then to buy him out and spread his cap hits the way that they've done, I will say basically with Lillard's cap hit plus Miles Turner's cap hit, that equals essentially what Lillard was going to be making anyways. It's like a couple million less than the 50 whatever. I think it totals up to like 49 or something. So that part was interesting, but yeah, it's I think it could be an interesting move. Again, with the East and not knowing what that's going to look like next year, they're very desperate to keep Giannis around, and this could appease him. We'll see what it looks like on the court.
We'll see what it looks like on the court. And again, I know that everything that they're doing right now is, the Bucks are just trying to pull out every stop to keep Giannis in town and keep him happy. But I don't know if this move by adding Miles Turner puts them over that hump and keeps them in the contender conversation.
Yeah.
They also lost Pat Connaughton. But they did sign Bobby Portis Jr. Re-signed Bobby Portis Jr. So
See,
I guess,
that I think is a worse move. They gave him a lot of money, right?
They did. Oh man, I'm trying to remember the exact contract that he was given, but they'd re-signed Bobby Portis, who I mean by all means is a fun player to watch, but
3 years, $44 million.
There you go.
And I know he was a key part of their finals run when they did end up winning it all, but he's also very old. And with Miles Turner now, I don't even think Bobby Portis was starting last year. So, yeah, with bringing Miles Turner in, Bobby Portis is definitely not going to be starting. So that's a lot of money to tie up. But again, going back to fan favorites and that whole deal, like this is a guy who's done a lot for your organization, and they did lose Brook Lopez, I believe. So I know you need some depth there behind Giannis and Miles Turner, and he's a fine depth piece, but he's not the player that he was a couple years ago. So I don't know.
We'll see how it all works out. But right now the moves that the Bucks are making are a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Head scratcher. They never should have traded Drew Holiday. I don't think. That's
I
where it all
agree.
went wrong.
I agree. I get you trade Drew Holiday to get Damian Lillard in to try to go all in, but honestly, the Damian Lillard experience hasn't worked out the best.
No.
Yeah.
And it's because we're commending, teams like the Rockets and teams like the Nuggets for not being content and trying to go all in. And admittedly, that's what the Bucks were doing. They were like, okay, how can we make ourselves even better? We need shooting. Let's go get one of the better shooters in the NBA and Damian Lillard. And it obviously just didn't work out. So that's hard because in retrospect, it's a bad decision. And yeah, you could have criticized the move at the time, saying you lose a lot of defending and whatever.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes there are teams that feel like they need to go all in and make these moves to stay relevant, and it just backfires. So it's not always smart, but I don't know. You got to commend them for trying, I guess. But now they got to dig themselves out of this hole.
Then you fire Mike Budenholzer and bring in Doc Rivers to replace him.
Yeah.
And that also did not work.
No.
Yeah, that was a really bad move by the Bucks.
All right, let's take another break. Coming up next, Alex, next week is Big 12 Media Days. So let's talk some college football. We kind of got to get into, I'm sure there was a lot of talk this week about the Big 12 not doing their preseason polls. That's kind of controversial. So we'll kind of give our own preseason predictions for the Big 12 a little bit. Coming up next, it's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.